You have tuned in to the Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine, your 1 hour all-dairy connection. We call it the Dairyman's source for new ideas, information, and technology, mixed with a double dose of current market conditions. The what, the why, and the how things influence the amount of money dairy producers receive for their daily milk deliveries. We offer this daily News Hour magazine as a catalyst to make long-term dairy producers sustainable. We invite every dairy producer in America to get their daily dose of what can be done and what they can do to achieve and maintain profitability on their farms. $22 for 36 months is our goal. We advocate there is a way forward. We invite dairy producers to come listen, to learn, and to participate. This is a no-complaint zone. We talk solutions. So get out your pen and paper. Here is your host of the Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine, Tom Van Nortwick, owner of Agribusiness Publications, publisher and editor of the Agribusiness Dairyman magazine.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's already Friday the 19th of February, 2016. Glad you've joined us. We appreciate the opportunity we have to talk with, communicate to dairy producers all over the country. The Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine is an offshoot of our 2020 agenda brought forward by Agribusiness Publications, our company. After spending many years now, I was just met a dairy producer whose wife was on our cover back in May of 2009. And it was good to see them again and to talk briefly about things. They have a 23-year-old son now, their oldest, who is just graduating this spring from Cal Poly with a degree in dairy, I believe in dairy management, and a minor in, I forget what his minor was going to be in, but more in the numbers. I think it was in the pest control and things like that for the farm. Anyway, sorry about that my memory, I have a really good memory, you'll find, but it's just super short. But anyway, back to that, it was just amazing to talk with them for a little bit about, what gets discussed around the table with current market conditions. And of course, what we're doing here is really just reaching out in a different way. We've been printing farm magazines for over 40 years, and the Agribusiness Dairyman magazine in particular for 35 years. And we're here through a lot of rises and falls, crashes, and the good times as well. 6, 7, 8 was good. Down in the fall, of course, 09 was horrible, 10 weak at best, 11, 12, 13. Finally, 14 gets good, and now off the rails again in 15. So these markets that we visit on a daily basis, courtesy of Mr. Ron O'Brien, who is a senior global strategist with Interfoods, and he, many years ago, when we first really started to pay attention to the things that we now know were the most important, which is market price and the conditions under which these market prices get established or perpetuated on and on and on. He came to us at the recommendation of some of his clients to say, hey, I'd like to offer this window into the dairy markets on a daily basis because I provide to my clients a bird's eye seat on the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And since then, he asked, hey, would you like to use that? And we immediately, we aren't the smartest bulb in the pack, but it made total sense to us to say, yeah, we'd love to. And every day, it's not a whole lot different than the day before. But what it reminds us of is what I have come to know matters most. Price, demand, supply, conditions, global influencers, industry news. You'll see that on our website, my-dairyman.com, industry news. is important in our world because it's an indication of what's going on and why things are happening the way they happen. And so we go there on this daily basis so that we can make the type of difference for you, dairy producers, that we think need to be made. And so Ron gives us the trades every day. We start with blocks and barrels, respectively, in cheese. And then a little bit later is the dry powder. And then they finish up the markets in the dairy industry with butter at 2:15. And the butter is on my mind this morning because when you look at the news of the day this morning, the one that it ought to just absolutely set everybody on fire is what your buyers of milk, your co-ops and processors are doing. And I'd like to know who's buying it. But if you look at the news of the day, if you take the time to read it, here's one for you that ought to just really get your blood boiling. And we'll talk about this as we move along this morning. U.S. 2015 butterfat imports outpaced U.S. butterfat exports by nearly 45%. Now, not everybody imports butterfat. I wonder who does that. If you're importing butterfat, now whether it's in finished form or not, I do not know. And we'll have to learn more about that. But you know why they went outside the United States to get the butterfat? It was just plain cheaper. We did it for the money. Where did the butterfat come from? Do you guys know that? Does the marketplace know that? Do the consumers know where the butterfat came from? What source? Are these the same crazy people that put melamine in formula in China? Where did this come from? We had scares for botulism in parts of the world. And we're importing this stuff into our food chain because it's just plain cheaper instead of doing the right thing, which would be to support the dairy producers and the infrastructure in the United States and just use your own damn butterfat. We know where it came from. We had it inspected. We've got the infrastructure in place to make sure it's safe and it's of the highest possible quality. And yet these dumb as a post processors, or were they the manufacturers and retailers, who was it, that imported more butterfat than we exported? And why are we importing any at all if we have plenty, more than enough, including enough to export? And, of course, the reason they did it was for the almighty dollar. Well, we can understand that. Maybe if we were them, we'd do that too. I don't know. I hope we would have better morals than that, a higher level of integrity and commitment to the industry than that. So you run into two problems. Number one, you're not supporting your dairy producers. Number two, you're opening yourself up to import product that is not inspected and not regulated and who knows what. What if there is a problem? You know what happens to everybody's milk chain when there is a contamination issue? You want to talk to Chipotle? Shall we talk about that? They had a 30% reduction in total sales last year as a direct result of having some contamination issues somewhere in their processing stream. U.S. consumers don't go for that. And you can't blame them. Why would you risk that? And my question is to the processors, the manufacturers this morning, why would you risk that? And so we see these things on a daily basis, gang. This is something that you should be paying attention to. No, you can't fix it today, but we need to be aware of it. And the next time it comes up, in fact, when we track this down, we need to find out, okay, that's fine. There's that statistic, 45% more butterfat imported last year than we exported. Two questions. Why and who? So those are the things that we can do if we're out here having an engagement, if you will, to meet on a regular basis so we can pass along the information. And, of course, we need to be anxiously engaged in coming up with the answers. They're out there, but it takes a little digging. But I'll bet we can find them. And then when we do, somebody needs to send them a certified letter and ask why. And it needs to come with power from the producer sector internally. You don't do what the Republicans are doing and, air your stinking dirty laundry on national television every week because you want to beat the heck out of one guy and not the other, or 2 or 3 or 7 of them. That's not what you better have a plan. They should be talking about solutions. They should be focused on what they're individually or collectively going to do, and they better be collective, because only one guy can be president. You don't get to team that deal. Not that wouldn't be a bad team, but oh boy, I don't know if they'd get along. But they better be prepared to individually and collectively do what it takes this time, because the reason we are where we are is because the guys before them didn't get it done. And it's that way in the dairy industry as well. I'm not keen on the leadership in the dairy industry that would pay dairy producers a pay price for milk below cost of production. When dairy producers are paying, I found out yesterday, and out with dairy producers is what we do, and how about that hauling bill, guys? That one dairy, $28,000 a month. One producer paying to get his milk from his farm to the processing facility, and the milk, who's the milk belong to? When they pick it up, who's it belong to? But dairy producers, not under order by any means, not mandated by any body, but they pay a significant amount of money to get that milk hauled from the farm to the processing facility. And we realize there's costs there. But there's another one. I thought make allowance had something to do with all that. What's up with that make allowance? And then you pay the hauling too. Then you pay the marketing. Then you pay for disappearance because they can't get it sold, because we got milk going out there to consumers that doesn't taste as good. We got cheese that has no taste. We got butter that has no taste. Those are some issues that we think need to be resolved by dairy producers, and solutions are available. There are solutions to these problems. So we're going to keep pushing that envelope with, as Stuart mentioned in our opening, a double dose of the markets, because this is where it lives and dies. The one producer said to me yesterday, he said, "Tom, you should have seen the check. The check. Should have seen it. Wasn't pretty. It certainly wasn't enough." And every dairy producer in the country right now can say, yeah, that check was too small. Missing a lot of numbers. A few more zeros. And when you're $5, $7, $10 under where we were in 2014, simply because we are not being market responsive, simply because we're not fortifying, simply because we're not capitalizing on the entirety of the U.S. domestic marketplace, when we've got 15 to 25% of the population not able to consume dairy on a daily basis because the system is stacked against it, when our excesses could easily remedy that problem and fix a lot of things for a lot of people, when we leave $14 billion on the table in 1 year, more than $1 billion a month did not flow into the hands of dairy producers in 2015, into the pockets and checkbooks of dairy producers in 2015, and that has a tremendous rippling effect downstream. Seven times economic impact, typically. So that's, more than $90 billion that didn't come my way, didn't come your way if you're a vendor, didn't come into the community in the form of taxes and revenues that will help all of our communities and states. The money went someplace, but it didn't come to dairy producers. So those are our big concerns that we work on every single day, and hopefully shed a little light on things for you as a dairy producer when you join into the show. We're going to be grabbing a hold of Ron O'Brien here. Let's see if we can get him added to our group without any stumbling blocks this morning. Okay. We've joined Ron O'Brien. a senior global strategist with Interfoods. You are listening to the Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine, your 1 hour all dairy connection. We're joining the global, slap my face here. We're talking, or listening in, I should say, to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the trading that will open shortly for blocks and barrels, cheese, and more stuff in the news.
Barrel settled at 147 and a quarter. Well, happens here today. We're open here. No market stars have been posted. No bids, no offers.
During the void here, the U.S. January milk production report will be released later today, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. That'll be interesting to see how dairy producers outside of California are responding. As I visited with dairy producers yesterday,
still nothing posted. No bids, no offers.
They're proud of the fact that they've been cutting back. As we learned from a dairy producer on Monday of this week, the cutback or the reduction in total milk production in California, he feels is in direct correlation to the number of dairies that are going out of business.
No bids, no offers.
But hopefully other producers are responding. We put out a call for a 2% per month reduction in December of 2015 because supply is just too high, too much milk in the markets at any given time, as little as 2% too much.
150 even offer in the block by KPC. 150 even offer in the block by KPC. No bids. About 30 seconds till the call here. Still no barrel market.
That 2% can create as much as a 40% decrease.
By one time, 147 and a quarter bid in the barrel by SIP.
A 40% decrease in the pay price of milk.
The block right now, I've got no bid, a 150 even offer by KPC one time. The barrels are a 147 and a quarter bid by SIP one time with no offers. 249 even offer in the block by KPC is just a steady offer in the block. We're coming to the call.
And that reduction, of course, is in your pay price. The amount of money a dairy producer gets paid for their milk on a daily basis.
On the day barrel. Block still offered at 49 even. Posting. First call. Second call. Third. 47.75 bid in the barrel by SIP. We're up a half in the barrel. Block still offered at steady. Post. First call. Second call. Third. 875 offer in the block by KCC. Barrels. 148 even bid by SIP. EJM sells that.
Did he say 875? That'd be a
875 offer in the block. We've got no market in the barrel right now. 148 is last in the barrel.
It dropped 2 digits. It's not just one.
First call. Second call. Third. Close. All right, so we're going to settle right there at the block at 148.75. Down a quarter. No load trading. Barrel settling at 148 even. Up 75 just with the one load trading in the barrel.
Okay, now there's a classic.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
There's a classic day
all right,
on the.
That's it. Once again, selling the block at 148.75 down a quarter with no load trading. Barrel settling at 148, even up 75 with one load trading. So we're going to be back on here for non-bat. Just a couple of few non-bat settled at 73.5. Stay with me.
All right. As I was going to say, that's a fairly typical occurrence here now. You're hearing the trades take place. In blocks this morning, no trades, okay? But blocks fell a quarter of a cent, 148.75, okay? No trades, no offer, okay? And then barrel cheese, you get to barrel cheese up slightly on the sale of one truckload. Somebody bid up the price of barrel cheese on the market with one truckload. And that's where we say, wow, wouldn't it be great? Because there's too much cheese right now. There's too much butter. There's too much powder. It's all sitting in inventory, and it's having an impact on the pay price of milk for a dairy producer. So what if a dairy producer was there, a bunch of dairy producers were there, and they were bidding it at 194? But maybe to clear the market, you simply, you start it up slow. You're bidding above them. Let's go at 152. 153, 154, and we build it back up. And use your money, you set aside, Dairy Pricing's agenda for the Dairy Pricing Association is to have you set aside 10 cents per hundredweight, and then you come into the market right now and you bid that back up. You take your excesses, you buy as much as you can out of the inventory as often as you can, and you donate it to Feeding America and other food banks that are helping the poor and needy in this country, the 15 to 25% of our population that are not getting a daily dose of dairy products. None. They don't have any. The statistical information tells us that there are Americans who have not had a regular serving of dairy products in 40 years. A segment of the population. Not to mention a segment of the population who daily suffer from what they call now food insecurity. They don't have enough to take care of their basic needs in their current condition, situation, problems, whatever they may be. Unemployment, handicap, severe unemployment, or just plain old severe poverty. How about they just don't have the dollars? And so there is a means that doesn't need to be hungry in America, and we have excess. And if you remember what we've been commanded, is that we have a responsibility to give of our excess to those who have none, even if it's an extra coat hanging in the closet, because then everybody's blessed in the process. And that does that make total sense? We're going to be blessed if we get rid of that inventory. They're going to be blessed for receiving it. And then they, in turn, can help their children and their families. They, in turn, can possibly reach up. A hand up is not a hand out. A hand up means let's move them to the next level. Let's see what we can do about employment. Let's see what we can do about a job. There are things we can be doing as a people in this country. We just need the resolve to get about the work that we face. So pricing, as put together by a group of dairy producers in Wisconsin, had all of these things in mind when they said, look, we've got a problem. What can we do to solve it? And they've come forward with this plan. We call it a way forward. And we fully support it. We did a long time ago when we were busy helping the National Dairy Producers Organization get legs and start moving across this country, now in more than 33 states across the country where dairy producers are supporting their efforts. We learned very quickly that there are a lot of great ideas out there that are dairy producer oriented. And in fact, they're their ideas. We didn't think any of this up. Not that we haven't tried to come up with a creative way to get the word out, but by golly, there's a lot of good information in the hands of dairy producers and a lot of great ideas. Now, this butterfat information, I'm not going to dwell too much more on that, except to say we will get to the bottom of that, and we'll see. Let's find out who's...
Until we open here for non-fat, settled at 73.5. Stay with me.
Okay, we got just a minute here till non-fat. All right, we're about to open with non-fat dry. Apple Scott
even bid on one by Trev. 75 even offer by Ash.
1 hour all dairy action. Listen in while we hear what's going on with dry powder.
Bid on one by Trev.
Dry powder started this week.
75 even offer by Ash. 73.5 bid on one by Trev joins the bid. 73.5 bid on. All right, man. Have a great weekend. Yeah, you too. Thanks. Sure. All right, peeps, that's it. Settling at 74 even for non-fat, up a half with no low trading. One unfilled today, one unfilled offer going out there, but no trades. So going to be back on here for butter and a couple of butter sold at 205.5. So stay with me.
Hello, I'm Eva Strang, Education Coordinator for the Allied Milk Producers. Parents who are concerned about their children's choice of snacks have discovered the wonderful world of cheese. Children love cheese, and you know it's a real dairy product, so it provides good nutrition. With over 400 varieties, cheese has the versatility to be served any time of day. It's an excellent source of calcium. Just make sure it has the real seal on the package. Then you know it's real cheese, a natural dairy product.
All right, our thanks to Allied. I love their commercials. I think they do a great job of kind of showing us where we need to be across the country, getting more and more information out to the consumers about how great tasting and nutritious dairy products are. I'm a little disappointed, as we all would be, on some of the allegations relative to what's in the cheese or what's in that dairy product. Is it all cheese? Is it not all cheese? I guarantee you, and we'll put this word out, it better not be happening, not in America. If there's guys doing that, we need to stop that. The last thing we need is to send out a product which is less than we could and should be providing. It needs to be of the highest quality, the best tasting, the coldest. That's one thing I get a little upset with the retailers sometimes. They're not keeping their refrigeration system cold enough, because when I pick up a carton, a container of milk of some sort, man, I want it cold. It needs to be cold. So those are very important components that we need to be focused on in the overall marketing of milk and dairy products. We've got to start focusing on better taste, more nutrition, and it's got to be 100% of what we say it's going to be. You don't put out cheese that's not all cheese. And there's been allegations. If that's the case, that needs to be stopped, and those people need to be just simply removed. You're gone. You're not in this business, because we don't put up with that crap.
As dairy farmers watch profits slip away and a wonderful way of life painfully comes to an end for future generations, Dairy Pricing Association sees a brighter future simply by having a solution. These dairy pricing farmer members in 10 states and growing have figured out a way. Government handouts are not the answer. It's time for farmers to take matters in their own hands. Dairy Pricing Association is asking for farmers to contribute 10 cents per hundredweight to buy surplus dairy products to create a floor price, as well as helping relieve hunger in America. This is a win-win. As dairy farmers, we watch markets fluctuate as much as $4 per hundredweight in 1 month's time. 10 cents is nothing. Imagine being able to curb another 2009 scenario simply by controlling the floor price that you need as a dairy farmer to stay in business. With the dairy products that you as a dairy pricing member purchase, thousands of people are fed. No government assistance is needed. Rather, simply you as a dairy farmer are helping yourself by helping others. For more information, visit online, dairypricing.org.
All right, their announcement for Dairy Pricing Association. You can visit their website at dairypricing.org, and we encourage you to do that. Our website, www.my-dairyman.com, will also provide ample information about what's going on at dairy pricing and how you as a dairy producer can become involved in that. We're going to be out talking to a lot more producers in the very near future about this very effort, because something's got to be done. There's got to be a plan. There is no other plan in the marketplace right now. I don't care who you talk to or where you go. Nobody's got a plan. We look at the morning news, and it's significant. Dean Foods expects global dairy fundamentals to continue to be overall supportive to its business as production outpaces demand. Well, I don't know what that means, but I don't think it's real positive for producers. We already talked about China's dairy sector, which was valued at $4.6 billion, those are U.S. dollars in 2013, is currently experiencing oversupply. Now, that one I want to look at, because I'm assuming they're talking about, is it oversupply from their own production or oversupply from other product they bought 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm assuming that that is still sitting in China 4 years later. China returning to stronger import growth despite economic volatility. according to the latest assessment by Fonterra. And that would not surprise me at all. We've predicted that in our publisher's perspective, that China will not be back to the gangbuster double-digit growth that we saw in 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. They will come in, buy, step out, come in, buy, because there's no reason, if you were them, would you pay twice the price when you don't need to. You're the big elephant in the room. Every time you come into the room, it gets more expensive. Every time you leave the room, milk gets cheaper. Milk products get cheaper. And so if I'm China, I'm going, okay, I like that cheaper price. Why? Because they want to get as much as they can get, much bang for their buck as they possibly can. And, of course, with the value of their currency relative to the U.S. dollar, can they get what they need here? No. Even at our price, the dollar makes it difficult for them to get U.S. products. Do they want them? Yes, because they are the best in the world. But, and as a producer told me yesterday, hey, Tom, it isn't always the lowest bidder. It isn't always the lowest price that matters most in global. And thank goodness, there are people out there that do focus more attention on quality. Now, we're coming up to the butter trades, always at 5 after the hour during our News Hour magazine.
We settle butter 205.5. First call. Second call. Third. We're closed. All right, they're going to settle right there at 205.5. Unchanged, no lows trading here. Just going out 102 bid and 102 offer. So, that is it, everybody. Have a lovely, safe, prosperous weekend. It's warm.
All right, there we have it. The end of the. Let's make sure we're still going here. Yep, looks like we are. Good morning and welcome back to the Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine, your 1 hour all dairy connection. We've just concluded the butter trades at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, brought to us by Ron O'Brien of Interfoods, and we express our appreciation to him for this opportunity. Not a lot of activity today. There has been a lot of movement in butter, and literally truckloads and carloads of product has moved over the last couple of weeks. There still is demand, especially domestic. The good news, if you're the buyer of that material, is that you have been able to purchase it much cheaper than you have in the past. And those kind of things, of course, are having the type of impact we see in the pay price of milk now in the low 13s here in California. I haven't seen any 12 numbers yet, but the Class 3, Class 4 milk price nationwide set yesterday was about $13.80, and so the California discount continues here, and so we're talking about milk that could be in the low 13s or the very high 12s. So no small problem. That creates a tremendous amount of angst for dairy producers. One of the farms I was on yesterday, for instance, a dollar in the milk price. Let's say we could go from $13.80 to $14.80. Over a year's time is $1 million in cash flow to one dairy. That one dairy. $1 million. No small deal. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. Well, you multiply it times the hundredweight produced by that dairy, and we're talking about a very, very significant impact in cash flow. $100,000 a month, give or take. If you had $100,000 less dollars with the same cost of production, would that each month, would that have an impact? Yes, it does. Now, one of the things in our publisher's perspective this month in the Agribusiness Dairyman magazine, Publisher's Perspective, February 2016, we have some ongoing concerns that we expressed in writing, and one of them, of course, is the fact that China and India are becoming a significant player in the global markets simply because of their continuing growth in milk production. Okay, they are big. They have lots of people. India is actually pushing in population growth to overtake China as the country in the world with the most people. That doesn't seem possible, but it's coming that way. And of course, a lot of it has to do with the growth situation of the population in China versus the growth of population in India. And so but both of them are racing, in my opinion, relative to their own economic ability to produce more milk, and I know over time improve quality, because it's just the way I've come to know these people. They're not, conditions might be difficult, but they, in my opinion, would be doing everything they can to create and maintain quality in their production process, their manufacturing process, and their delivery process. Are there going to be hiccups? Yes, there's already been hiccups. And I certainly would not want, under current conditions, to bank the U.S. dairy industry on bringing their product into our country and putting it into our food chain. But I believe that over time, sometime late in the next decade, they will have perfected, or dramatically, perfected's way too much, dramatically improved their ability to produce more milk of higher quality. Cow care, comfort. They're already getting somatic cell counts under control slowly. And why? Because the technology exists, and I think both of them, if they wanted to, could pour the money into it. And so that is one of our big concerns. What about China? What about India? They're not always going to be net importers of dairy products. And of course, I keep wondering, like we talked about just a bit ago, why we're importing dairy products. Can you imagine the U.S. importing unfinished dairy products? That is just plain stupid. But anyway, here's a little article on China that pops up this morning. Official figures show production and consumption of dairy products in China have soared, averaging 12.8% annual growth rate since 2000. Okay, double-digit consumption. Now, wouldn't that be great in America? We're plus or minus 1%. They're talking about almost 13% per annum. Now, 13% on a billion people. We only have 310 million. They have more than a billion, and it's growing to 12.8. That is a lot of dairy. It's a lot of increased dairy. A group of Australian dairy farmers and consultants visited China as guests of animal health and nutrition company Alltech in January to see what Chinese farmers are doing to drive growth. The group traveled to northeast China to visit a world-class training center, the Nestle Dairy Farming Institute in Shuangchang in Heilongjiang province. And I apologize to anyone who does speak Chinese for my pronunciation. With the emphasis on education and utilizing new technology, the DFI, which opened in 2014, has already provided free training to about 1,000 farmers. Partnering with Nestle, Alltech participates in numerous educational initiatives and assistance in establishing best practices in Chinese agribusiness, hosting nearly 40 training sessions for DFI students last year. Alltech Oceania technical sales representative Steve Ralston said the Australian delegation toured the cutting-edge Alltech in vitro fermentation model. I'll be darned. No, in vitro. It is. Okay. I was right. And let me scroll down a nice picture of them at the Institute. Alltech uses its diagnostics tool to simulate rumen fermentation and evaluate the nutritive. There's not a word not that used that often in my world. The nutritive value of total mixed rations, which means how much nutrients, how many nutrients, and what value are the nutrients coming to the cow from these various rations that they have available to them. And I imagine their feed rations are somewhat different, although guess who's there? Americans, Australians, New Zealanders, and others are there to help teach. And so what are they going to learn? They're going to learn what we know. Okay, these are not trade secrets. We're teaching them what to do and how to do it. Results from the model not only provide Chinese dairy nutritionists and farmers evaluations and recommendations for dairy rations to maximize feed efficiency and combat ever-rising feed costs, but also obtain estimates of the amount of energy lost to methane and methane emissions per animal. As the cost of feed can represent up to 60%, okay, there it is, 60% of the total cost of producing milk in intensive dairy production, improving dairy efficiency is essential in China's efforts to increase domestic production. The Australians then toured the DFA model farm. Mr. Ralston said the delegation was impressed with the quality and intensity of the operation, particularly the high production from the cows being milked 3 times daily. The group observed feed ingredients commonly used, including cornflakes, canola meal, sugar beet pulp, pellets. Tony DeGroot would love that. Lucerne hay, you got to know Tony. He's gone now, but he was very much into sugar beets for his cows. Lucerne hay and local sheep grass. Lagatha dairy farmer Mike Kilkenny said the DFI dairy farm and Alltech lab were well thought out collaborations. The ability to run the in vitro fermentation model and then change the diet to improve feed efficiency is a great tool, Mr. Kilkenny said. The Australian farmers traveled to Northeast Agriculture University, where they met with Professor Zhang Yogan and some of his students, who outlined the Chinese dairy industry and some of the challenges it is facing. Professor Zhang stressed that financial pressures and cost of ingredients were major factors affecting the industry. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like 2013 to me. 2012. The group spoke, 2012 U.S., by the way. The group spoke at length about the public relations campaign in China to help the dairy industry win back Chinese consumers' trust in loyalty produced product. Okay, because they went through the melamine scare. They've got some consumers going, no way. We're not going to touch your stuff. I mean, there was black market for baby formula from everywhere else in the world, while the baby formula from China sat on the shelf, produced there in China. The group also had the opportunity to visit a family farm milking around 800 cows outside of Beijing. While the farm appeared quite simple upon arrival, once inside the complex, the group was pleasantly surprised, Mr. Ralston said. Despite having very limited equipment, Zhao Wuwei, who started as a driver for the owner and has moved up to farm manager, was achieving in excess of 32 liters per cow per day. Now, 32 liters would be about 8 gallons, give or take. Is that right? A liter's close to a quart, right? Give or take. All right? With minimal capital expenditure. He will oversee the imminent transition of the farm to a modern 1,000-cow unit. The delegation was particularly impressed with the on-site laboratory at the farm, which tested for quality. The farm tests for melamine, cell count, milk components, and aflatoxins. Okay, it is aflatoxins. While China, again, I am too far out of my chemistry classes. Aflatoxins. While China is fighting to improve consumer perception of quality in locally produced milk, the reality is that the milk sent out from this farm is probably cleaner than some Australian producers, Mr. Ralston said. Oh, that would scare me. Come on, Australia. While average milk production in China is slightly lower than current Australian estimates, a focus on innovation and increased investment in new technologies is predicted to help China overtake Australian producers in the next 18 months. Cha-ching, China becomes number 3, or whatever. The Chinese are doing an excellent job of adapting to change before they have to. After seeing the level of innovation in the farms we visited, I believe that Australian farmers are in danger of not innovating quickly enough. making it easy for China to overtake us, Mr. Ralston said. We have fat, cheaper feed, better conditions, and less extreme temperatures. We need to start thinking differently and changing. Mr. Ralston, again, talking about his Australian producers. Mr. Ralston said while China continued to rebuild consumer trust after several food safety scares in recent years, the Australian Farm Group saw that in reality they were embracing new technology and advances in nutrition and would most likely move ahead of Australian producer levels on a per-cow basis. Melbourne-based dairy consultant Scott Barnett said the Chinese dairy industry was bouncing along by adopting the latest technologies, both mechanically and in their feeding. Australian farmers are at risk of being outperformed if we rest on our laurels, he said. These are consistently persistent people. Why? Because they have a huge need. Huge need. They got 1 billion people. And the industry is growing 12.8% per year. That makes it economically sound that they do their very best to get the highest quality milk, the most milk they possibly can, and of course, and convert it into products that the Chinese people like. One of the issues is that over time, the Chinese people will continue to increase the amount of dairy products they consume. Right now, that number is relatively small, especially compared to U.S. or European consumers of milk and milk products. But that's going to change. And so our prediction that China and India become the players sometime in the next decade. Write it down. There's the reason for your pen and paper. Write down that because we're pretty sure that's right. And you can see that they're doing it in earnest. That laboratory on that farm, mandated. That was mandated. Because we're going to be doing, there's an old saying out there, and I wished I had my piece of paper right here in front of me, but I gave it away the other day. But when you check on things, you set some goals, okay? Set a goal. When you set a goal and a time to complete the goal, and then you have regular checkups, not only does performance improve, but performance accelerates. A very wise man said that one time. So that's what we see they're doing, and we need all of that in our own worlds. We've set some goals. We're going to get $22 for 36 months, and we're going to show dairy producers how you can remove the volatility from the marketplace, and you can be asking for your price for the milk. What's the asking price? $22. And then you have to be prepared, though, to take total responsibility for your milk production. Overproduction or underproduction, you have to be responsible. If you overproduce, there are consequences. And then you have to implement tools that can be provided through dairy pricing and other initiatives that we will take advantage of in the near future. And you will see that volatility can be extricated from the dairy industry. It doesn't have to be this way. The only people that are getting preyed upon by volatility are dairy producers. They're the only people in this industry that government and then industry representatives, including your cooperatives, recommend margin protection insurance. Why? Because you don't have any margins that you can ask for. You don't have any margins that you can maintain. Everybody else sets their margins. Everybody sets the margins, but you. And so dairy pricing, Robin Berg would say to you, and just on the phone with him yesterday, you need to ask for your price. But in asking, you have to be prepared to be responsible for every aspect of your milk production from start to finish, including what happens to the inventory after it's been processed, after it's been put in a warehouse someplace, because it isn't moving fast enough, because you've made too much milk. The processors love it. They're running at capacity. You're paying the make allowance. You're paying the shipping. And then they come back to you and have you help sell it. Well, guess what? Like it or not, there are consequences. We think that there are better solutions than what you have adopted and perpetuated, or they have adopted for you and you have perpetuated by your inability to be market responsive or unwillingness. It's not inability. I had a dairyman say that to me yesterday. Well, you can't just turn the cows off. And how often we hear that? No, you can't just turn them off tomorrow. But that's why dairy pricing addresses both ends. Market responsive milk production backed by a savings account which is there to remove the excess inventories out of the storage so that we do not have the impact of this volatility that only dairy producers is heaped upon them, and they suffer the most from. Well, except for all the rest of us that are downstream, because when you don't have money, we don't have money. Doug Maddox said it best, give me enough money, and there isn't a single problem I can't solve on my dairy. Take away my money, and there isn't a single problem I can solve. And that's exactly where producers were yesterday as I visited those farms. Tom, the check was horrible. Unbelievable. And so we get that. We understand what it is to operate on a shoestring or not enough. That needs to change. It can be changed. And because it can be changed, then we must be about the work of getting that done. Pay attention. Come back and listen on Monday morning. It'll be the 22nd of February already, 2016. This is the Agribusiness Dairyman News Hour magazine, your 1 hour all dairy connection. Go and read our February book this weekend. Set some time aside, my-dairyman.com. You will love what you read, I think. It will make sense. These are ideas that have come to us from dairy producers. We are in the media. We're simply a media outlet that is saying, here's a plan, here's a way forward. You can take advantage of it, or you can sit and wait for demand to return. You want to know what the number one concern that I have is, and it's in the publisher's perspective, is that demand's not coming back, guys. It's not coming back like it was, and we could see an extended period of time below 16 if we do not take action. So we challenge you to wake up and do something more. There is and are things we can do, and especially if we work together. We appreciate the time we have. Good morning to everyone. Have a safe weekend, productive, and we'll be back on Monday morning, 8:30 a.m. in the Pacific time zone. And see, what else does that mean? 11:30 a.m. in the East. So take care. We'll be back on Monday morning. Bye-bye.
To learn or hear more, please join us for our daily News Hour magazine, your 1 hour all dairy connection. It is broadcast live every morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific and 11:30 a.m. Eastern. You can join the broadcast by calling 712-432-0900. Your conference PIN number is 666632#. Or you can listen to the recorded call by dialing 712-432-0990, using your same PIN number for personal access. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. We truly believe you need to and can know more. Our job is to deliver more knowledge to dairy producers, believing that if knowledge is power, then applied knowledge is nuclear power. We'll see you on the call.